So we're here to talk about your new wine.
We're here to talk about Lot 1, exactly. I'm very excited to tell you about this project. Long time coming, because I've been in the business almost 10 years now, and this has been in my mind probably since before joining the business even.
Have you worked with your father at Coldioccia?
Yes, since 2017, so it's now 8 years in Coldioccia.
I think we might have met there once.
I think so, yes. Or we've seen each other in Italy, or...
No, I don't think so. You must have been at your place.
Probably.
So, you are steeped in the classic Brunello di Montalcino.
Very much so, and grew up in the vineyards in Chile, so I literally grew up in the industry. This project is, as you can tell, a very personal and a very intimate project. It's no mistake that me and my father both signed the bottle, or our signatures are both on the bottle. And not only that, this is the first project in Montalcino, and we've been there for 50 years, to actually carry the family name. As you know, Coldioccia is the estate that my grandfather acquired 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And Coldioccia has its own brand, but we never used our family name for Coldioccia. After 50 years in Montalcino, with 5 decades of experience, we finally feel comfortable to make a very intimate and personal project where we use our family name, and it's actually the first time we use our family name since Cinzano.
Yeah.
Since, of course,
I think you sold...
which we sold in the 90s to Diageo, yes.
Yeah.
And it had been in the family since the 1500s.
Yes.
And I feel very honored and privileged to be able to say I'm a 10th generation winemaker in my family. So that comes with a lot of honor and of course, but also some responsibility.
Yes.
And it has always been a deep desire for me to, I don't want to say reclaim the family name, but reuse the name for a very high quality product. And just...
Well, I can understand it. It is a very famous family name.
Exactly.
It's your family name, and still you're not known under that name.
That's exactly my reasoning. And look, just an example is when I was a young kid growing up in Chile, and I didn't really know what had happened with Cinzano, but I knew it was us because in the house I saw paintings of Cinzano and old logos, ashtrays. And in the supermarket, I remember maybe 7, 8 years old, the first time I see a Cinzano bottle, I grab it and I put it in the cart. I'm with my father, and I see my father's face go white, and he says, "No, I don't want to see that, please take it away." And then I started thinking, there's something there that was probably a sad story, something that was very difficult for him. And effectively, when I was a little bit older, he told me how after growing up his whole life thinking and believing he would be the president of Cinzano, after unfortunately the passing of my grandfather when my father was my age, he ended up having to sell Cinzano for, difficult reasons that I won't go into, but usual situations of succession and not being prepared to inherit such a big company, etc. And ultimately, I believe that's part of why he moved to Chile, kind of to get away from a whole situation that was very hurtful for him. And when I noticed how much it hurt him, I knew I wanted one day, as a dedication to my father, to reclaim the name. Now, up until 3-4 years ago, every lawyer that we work with told us, unfortunately, you cannot use the name. The name has been sold, the brand has been sold, especially in category 33, which is a wine and spirits category. Very risky to use that name. Until one day I spoke to one of the lawyers and I said, what if I go speak to Luca Garavoglia, the owner of Campari, which is today the owner of Cinzano, tell him about my desire, my dream, my project, and see how he reacts. And the lawyer said, that is the only thing you can do, because legally. So that's what I did. I went to Milano, I asked Luca Garavoglia to meet him, We met, we went to lunch, I spoke about the project, and he told me, as long as Cinzano is mine, I will not complicate your life in any way, so please feel free. We shook our hands, he asked me to send him a bottle for Christmas, and that's how I got the chance to use what I ultimately decided to stylize as CMC, to make it short and memorable. So Conti Marone Cinzano, CMC, the family brand. Yeah. Now, what was born even before my desire to use a family brand was the concept of this wine.
Right.
So what is Lot 1? Lot 1 is, of course, a Brunello di Montalcino. The very first vintage is this one, is a 2019. It's been just released. And Lot 1 is a innovative concept because it is an itinerant cru. What this means is it is a cru, it is a single vineyard, or better said, a single parcel, but every vintage we change this parcel. Okay. So what happened is we started working with Professor Donato Lanati, and we started doing a micro-parcelization of over 100 hectares of sangiovese that the family owns in Montalcino. Okay. So when we started doing micro-parcelization, we started doing analysis on grapes from veraison up until maturation. So before picking, before harvest time, we started doing analysis to individuate the very best parcels of each vintage. Yeah. This is something we started doing because there is such a climatic variability and climatic unpredictability that the single vineyard and crus that we isolated in the 80s and 90s, with which we do some of our most famous wines, were just not performing well every vintage. I take as an example our Poggio al Vento. Poggio al Vento, we currently are with vintage 16, and then we will go to vintage 19. Sure. Because 17 and 18 were just not the right quality for Poggio al Vento. And that's our philosophy on our single vineyards, is we only bottle and produce them when that single plot is performing very well. Now, this does not happen every year. However, in every vintage, there is a specific plot that is better than the other plots, which is not necessarily a single vineyard. It can be a plot that usually you use for classic Brunello. So what we started doing is, because we're doing micro-parcelization, in every vintage we choose a plot that, according to the climatic conditions of that vintage, is performing particularly well. Just a brief example is the following. Vintage like 2017, we will most likely, and again, 17, very dry, very warm vintage, we will choose one of our higher vineyards, very clay-rich soil with hydrological retention, maybe not exposed to southwest because it gets too much sunlight. Vintage like 18 or 14, very rainy, very fresh. We will go for sandy soil, which has nice drainage, most likely southwest exposition, so it has more hours of sunlight. Probably a younger vineyard in a very warm vintage, which will suffer less. Just concepts like this. And we've had great experience in implementing this active, dynamic research of the best fruit. Because we know very well that every vintage has a specific plot that is the best. And in the past 10 years, in Coldorcia, we've seen our best fruit come from 10 different places virtually.
So do you mean to say that you see this as the best of the best in a specific year from your vineyard?
We do, absolutely. Now, best of the best, there's some specific parameters we're looking for. So, because in the past 10 years we've seen the warmest year on record, the rainiest year on record, the most, we always see extremes. Yeah. And inevitably, when you see a whole decade of extreme climates every year, you realize that you probably need a different approach. So here, the selection is looking for a high phenolic maturation and a very high level of norisoprenoids. Norisoprenoids are aromatic compounds that you then release in fermentation, but you can read them already after veraison, so in the maturing grape, in the maturing bunch.
So are you highlighting this in some way on the bottle? I mean, when I see here the bottle in front of me, it simply says Lot 1.
Yes, so actually here on the descriptive text we tell the climate of the season, vineyard we chose, what plot we chose and what characteristics it has, why we chose it. But even more in detail on the website you have an interactive map with all the vineyards that we have, so about 100 hectares of sangiovese, and it shows each vintage where it came from. Okay. And it shows you altitude, soil composition, exposition, and in a very logical manner it tells you this was the climate of the season, therefore I chose this vineyard. Now that being said, as you said, it is a selection of the best of the best fruit of the season, but with specific parameters, which are a style of wine that in my experience brings younger consumers to Montalcino. And by this I mean, look, my friends who are my age, when we meet and we want to drink a bottle, they drink Trousseau from Jura, they drink Beaujolais, they drink Etna reds, crisp, fresh, vertical reds. And when I bring a very traditional Brunello, often let's drink this in 10 years. So okay. I understand their taste profile, and I wanted to produce a Brunello that had two main aspects that are important for me. A very silky tannin, very velvety tannin, because I see that my generation doesn't love very tannins when they're not mature enough. So very high phenolic maturation and 50% of polymerization of tannins before going in the bottle, and very fruit forward. If I say the story that this is a selection of the best fruit of the season, then I want fruit to be protagonist. And at the nose, red fruit is very much protagonist. So
in a way, this, to a certain extent, it is a bit of a contradiction, because Brunello di Montalcino is a very imposing and impressive wine in many ways, but sometimes at the same time you're trying to squeeze it into a mold which is very attractive and fluid, if you will.
Exactly. I believe that Sangiovese from Montalcino can be an extremely sensual and elegant style of wine, and you are right about what the philosophy or style, main style of Montalcino is, but if we only rely on the current consumer base of Brunello, chances are that in 30 years my generation isn't drinking it and I'm selling a fraction of the Brunello I'm selling today. So I want Brunello and Montalcino as a region to be very attractive to my generation, and inevitably to achieve that attractiveness, there has to be a style of wine that is true to Brunello and is true to Montalcino, but at the same time is more approachable by my generation. And I find fruit forwardness, soft tannin, and a slightly more elegant and feminine style, if you want, to be very attractive to my generation. So that's what we're going for here in Lot 1.
Okay, let's taste it.
Sure.
Very smooth, very fresh, lots of fruit vitality.
Yes, exactly, fruit. So what we actually we managed to do, because of the very high level of norisoprenoids, which are aromatic compounds, is we can do slightly shorter macerations. We can do, and above being shorter macerations, we can do more delicate pump overs and actually extract less.
So you're working with the vinification technologies that you have.
But we can extract more aromas per less tannins, because if we were choosing grapes with very mature tannin but very high level of aromatic compounds, then to reach a certain level of aromatic concentration, the extraction you need to get there will extract less tannin. So,
let's think about another thing. Being conscious a little bit about the time. How are you now going to bring this to the market? Because it may be something which is confusing compared to your traditional. And also another question I had is, will you do this occasionally, or will you bring
That's
it
a
to
good
all
question.
markets,
So,
or,
this will be produced every year because it is the expression of the best fruit of a specific season. So by definition, there is best fruit every season, and so I want to produce it every year. It will be communicated, distributed separately from Coldorcia, so different importers, different approach to market. It's a separate company, it's not part of Coldorcia, so Conti Marone Cinzano will be presented as a quite innovative project in Montalcino, innovative approach to selecting the fruit, but its own brand with one wine, which is Brunello di Montalcino Lot 1. In terms of the confusion, it's a new concept, so for sure it needs to be understood and it needs to be explained, probably in first person. So what we're doing now, you and I, is something that I will replicate in all the markets I go to. I will spend most of this year bringing the product to new markets, to new clients, doing some staff trainings, doing some communication about it, to ultimately get out the story in the most clear way possible.
If you're using separate distribution channels.
Exactly, and it's a small enough production.
Two different brands for customers.
Exactly, and the production is also small enough to allow me to treat this as a very personal and intimate project, and ultimately basically sell it personally in most markets.
Well, what is the production? What do you expect
First
to be the
vintage was
production?
9,000 bottles. In the production will be from 6 to 9,000 every year. Never more than 9, at least 6. There may be some years in which we can produce less than that, but between 6 and 9,000.
So is this also maybe something with idea somewhere in your head that this separate company might do something else differently in the future?
That's a possibility, definitely, but right now trying to focus on the first project. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Per. Thank you for coming by.